Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it.
Kevin, what's going on, buddy? We're not in the basement tonight.
Good evening, everyone. This is fun. This is different. This is not what we normally do, and you're a bit further away tonight. I'm not sitting right next to you with all that pipe smoke in my face.
Do you miss me? You want to come over here and cuddle?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'll enjoy my own, though.
All right.
You good?
I am good. It's nice to be here. It's nice. This is the second time we've done a live recording or a recording in front of an audience. It's kind of cool to see folks out there. Normally, like Kevin said, it's just me and pipe smoke and having to endure his singing when we're doing sound checks beforehand. We fortunately spared you all of that tonight, or he did anyways.
Oh, I sang, but you wouldn't put any sound on.
Okay, so maybe I spared you from part of it, yeah.
Right. Anyway, this is fun. For those of you who are listening or those who are watching on YouTube, you obviously see some guests that we have here. And thanks for all the folks that have showed up to listen and to watch. We're at Six Bears and a Goat Brewery tonight, and we're recording out on the Hop Yard, which is the stage at the brewery. We have an audience that's out in front of us. And we have Tom and Gene O'Connor, FBI agent legends, that are here with a special presentation tonight. And let me just tell you a little bit about these two folks, just so I can place them in context before they talk about what's going on. I won't talk about what their age is, but they've been around and hanging around each other for a lot of years. Not that long, though, right? No, not too bad. Mm-hmm. Okay. They're from originally the state of Massachusetts. They are hometown sweethearts. Met each other, I guess, pretty much right out of high school.
Exactly.
And Tom became a police officer, and Gene became a bank auditor. And if you think about those two professions, both of whom would transition into FBI agents a number of years later, over a decade later, right?
Right.
You know, the sort of skill set that you need to be a bank auditor and the skill set you need to be a police officer, all of that translates well into FBI agency. Is that a word? Did I? FBI agency? No.
Agentability.
Okay, agentability. All right.
It's our podcast, man. You can make words up. It's all good.
Okay. Speaking about Tom first, team lead on numerous high-profile terrorist attacks while stationed. How many years were you guys at Washington Field Office, which was your final assignment?
It was the only assignment. I mean, we came out of the academy, and I landed at Washington Field Office in 1997 and retired in 2019. So 23 years for me, just short of.
22 for me.
Okay. So a lot of years in D.C., which...
the only thing I've ever beat her at.
Okay.
That's a number of years.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Evidence response team members of high acclaim. Tom was selected as the FBI's Instructor of the Year at one point along the way. He is currently the president, and I think you're the executive director, Gene, is that right, of the FBI Agent Association? Please correct that.
I am the first past president, because the president of the FBI Agent Association is a active duty FBI agent. So Brian O'Hare is took over from me in July of 2019.
Okay, by the way, I need to say this. This is important. This is a fundraising event tonight, and so the more you drink, the more money that they can contribute to their...
Not that you need encouragement.
Right. Right.
Steve Dietitian is here. We are going to make a mint.
Right. And the money goes to the FBI Agent Association. You guys want to talk about that just real quick before we get into it?
Sure. It's going to go to the FBI Agent Association Memorial College Fund, where we put the children of our fallen agents through a 4-year degree. We pay currently about 75% of their tuition, room and board, books. And we're here to talk about 9/11 and the Pentagon attack. And from 9/11 attacks, we have had approximately 25 children from agents who have fallen as a result of their exposure to the different toxins at all three of the sites.
Yeah,
So,
and including Lenny Hatton, who was killed on the day of 9/11. But
Okay. So it's a good cause. You're helping these families that suffered an amazing tragedy during the evidence response piece of this, which is, just as important as, well, probably more important after the fact to figuring out what happened and then what we can do about it. Retired in 2019. I think you both did, right?
we retired on September 11th, 2019, in a way of honoring those agents who were on the posters here that were unable to retire. So we did that on September 11th, 2019. And that, once again, was Jean's idea. She came up with all these. She's the good idea fairy, and she came up with that one. And it really, on our credentials, our retired credentials, it is marked September 11th.
Wow.
So it means a lot.
You betcha.
and I think
That's very cool.
The other exciting thing for us on our retirement was that two of the sons of Bob Roth actually presented us with our retired credentials.
Okay.
So
Wow.
it was really, really special.
Yeah, that's special. Okay, both of them are written about a lot. They appear, they're consulting in their field of expertise around the globe, literally, continuing since they retired formally from the FBI. Jean, as I said, was a bank auditor. She worked when she came into the FBI and became an agent, got involved in a whole bunch of things, like Tom did, responses to every international and domestic major terror event that occurred around the world. Like I said, one or both of them typically were there involved. Undercover white-collar crime for a while, you did that. Transferred to Washington Field Office onto the evidence response team, and you guys continued to work together, and you were a team lead as well. Tonight, we're focused on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. That was a day that changed the world, certainly a day that changed America, and it was an event that if you're old enough to remember, you remember exactly where you were and what you were doing on that day. And we look forward to this presentation tonight. This is all about them. Bryant and I will pipe in and talk to them and ask questions along the way. We'll hold questions for the audience until the very end. But Witness to Terror is the title of tonight's presentation. Tom and Jean, take us away.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Hey, can I hit the pause button for 1 second?
Yeah.
Because I
You
feel,
own it.
I feel compelled to do this, right? We're at a brewery, and we have to toast while we're at breweries, right? Or any other place that serves alcoholic beverages or adult beverages. So before we start hearing about their experience, and I'm very excited and anxious to hear it, I'd like to have you all raise a glass for all those service members, those Marines, soldier, and sailor, Navy corpsman that we lost here recently, and Pentagon police officer Gonzalez, and all of those. Just pay tribute to all those that continue to serve every day to keep us safe here in America.
You're here.
Here.
Cheers. All right, unpause. Please continue.
You got it. So you want to start, Kevin? We'll just start rolling here.
Yeah, do it.
Okay.
It's all yours.
So we kind of wanted to, in today's conversation, we wanted to talk about 9/11, the Pentagon specifically, and it is an event that most people have not been able to actually see what happened there because it was a highly classified location. It's the Pentagon. Unlike New York and Shanksville, it wasn't a big public event, right? Because it was secured. So we want to show people what the agents and all of our partners were, what was done there at the Pentagon in an effort to recover the evidence, recover the victims, and really get the job done on 9/11. And for us, it was the highest honor of our career.
You bet.
To literally have been there. Nobody would have wanted to be anywhere else but there.
And I think it not only did it shape our career, but I think it shaped the next 25 years. I mean, it's still shaping what we do every single day.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Jean came in, her graduation was September 11th of 1998.
Wow.
Worked 9/11.
Oh, my goodness.
And we retired on 9/11. So 9/11 is a date that has a lot of significance to us. And it is something
That just gives me chills, man. That gives me chills to think about.
Yeah, and I was in Africa at the embassy bombings with a couple of people, Rigo here in the crowd, and we were working the embassy bombings in Nairobi when Jean was getting ready to retire from the academy, and so.
How about graduate?
Graduate. What did I say?
Retire.
Retire from the academy. Well, you kind of retire from
Right.
the academy. You're not going to go back to it again, right? So, that date really has a lot of meaning to us, and so we'll get on with the program.
You bet.
All right.
Do it. And
So-
Jean, I just want to say, Jean, project and get up on that thing. There you go. All right.
That's it, Gene. this isn't,
Use your outside voice.
This isn't the podcast about sex. You
Right.
can, you
Use
can
my
talk about this.
Use my senior team leader voice right
Yes.
That's
now.
exactly
Yes,
right.
exactly.
Okay, so as you said, everyone here has a story of where they were on 9/11, whether they were in Cleveland or they were wherever they were. Everyone has a story about where they were, and this is our story.
Okay.
And the morning of 9/11, I was at the Washington field office, and I was assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force on the evidence response team, and it was just a regular day on the task force, which in reality, there is no regular day on the task force because you never know what's going to happen, which is going to change the trajectory of what you were planning to do that day. On this morning, we all heard about the first planes hitting the towers, and we went to the supervisor's office, and we were watching like everybody else in the country was doing, except we were starting to get our team ready to go to New York because we felt, hey, this is a huge event. Potentially it's an act of terrorism, and because was it a Cessna or was it a large plane? There wasn't a lot of information coming out yet, so we were kind of getting the team ready. When that second plane hit, there was no question that our team was going to New York. We started putting out pages, and at that point, an agent who was on the squad, Chris Combs, he was in his bureau car. And he was very close ties with the fire department in the region, had just done training the day before, and he called back to the office and said that the radio was reporting, radio being the fire department radio, the police department radio, was reporting smoke coming from the Pentagon. And those of us who live in the Washington, D.C. area, we know smoke doesn't come from the Pentagon.
Right.
So we were sitting in the office, and I knew, having been a police officer for 15 years, that being in a government building was not where I wanted to be. Not because I was concerned about a hit at the office, but I knew that the paperwork and everything that was going to start coming in, and you could get tied to doing something that's important, but not something I wanted to do. So I grabbed another agent, Scott Stanley, and we went down to the basement, got in my Crown Vic, and we took off to the Pentagon.
So basically, he self-deployed to the Pentagon?
I did exactly what we
Everything
teach us not to do. Yeah, 100%. So. Yeah, I completely, and I can remember it because I had my ever-present Dunkin' Donuts in my hand, and Scott Stanley was in the passenger seat, and when we got out of the parking garage and into D.C. and onto the Southwest Expressway, heading over just a short mile to the Pentagon, traffic was just gridlocked, nothing. And so I started hitting the breakdown lane. And Scott's a former firefighter, a paramedic. He's like the smartest person that we've ever met. No offense, but he's pretty smart. And he's screaming at me as we're racing down the breakdown lane, "You're not going to make it." Like in between cars, he's like, "You're not going to make it." And I'm got my coffee in my hand. I'm like, "Oh yeah, we will." I mean, I've been driving a Crown Vic for 15 years. I know how to drive this thing. Drive it like you stole it, right? So we're going down the breakdown lane, and we were not taking off our mirrors. We made it all the way, and it started getting weird from there, right? We got to the top of 395 by the Pentagon, and this photo that you see on the screen here is literally what we saw, except at that point the building hadn't collapsed. It was still in place, but the amount of smoke and everything that was coming out of it. There's several exits to the Pentagon, so I got off the wrong exit. And there was a person at the top of the exit that was stopping traffic from going down. And I looked at this guy, and he was a Navy, dressed in a Navy uniform. And I'm like, I know that guy. And we pulled up. It was the captain of the USS Cole, who we had just in 2000 processed the USS Cole in Yemen when it was bombed by Al-Qaeda.
Oh, my goodness.
And so here's Captain Lippold in the top, and we pull up, and we're like, what the hell are you doing here?
Right.
He's like, the building just got hit. And I'm like, check, we got that part of it. So we went down that exit, and we pulled into the parking lot, and it was, I describe it as like a Godzilla movie, but calm. Civilians and military were walking away from the building, not like you see people running, because they're military. They were orderly, moving away from the building. As we drove in with our lights on, a Pentagon Force Protection officer came up and stopped us and said, first of all, who the hell are you?
Right.
And where are you going? And we said, we're with the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. And he said, okay, can you take the Joint Chiefs out? And I was like, I guess we can, right? I mean, what else you got to do, right? So I got out and I dumped everything from the back seat of my car, which was everything, into the trunk. And then we drove down to the wooden doors along the river.
Right.
And a colonel came out and he's like, they're gone. So
Okay.
I was like, good, we don't have to do that. So then we drove over the grass and came around to the side of the building where the attack had taken place.
Can I stop you there just for a second?
Yeah.
So one of the, I said at the early stages, passing on the wisdom of the ages is something that we're talking about. And there's an interesting sort of inflection point that this happened, and you decided you didn't want to stay in the office and do paperwork. You were going to go to the crime scene. That's unusual. Most people are not doing that. And I know that is
not
part
my
of
first rodeo.
Right, exactly. But that's my point, is sometimes predetermined thought predicts present action, right? It's not your first rodeo. And so you're thinking about, I gotta get there, and I don't want to get stuck in here being witness to people coming in and tell their story about what happened at the Pentagon.
100%.
Which was going to be fine and good, but
I mean, very important.
Okay.
But I knew that my skill set was crime scene, and the crime scene was not inside the Washington field office. The crime scene was at the Pentagon.
Okay.
So we end up, Scott and I drove over to the attack side of the building, and at that point we literally set up the initial command post for the FBI out of the trunk of my car. And I was wearing a pair of dress pants, dress shoes, and for some reason a sports jacket, because a lot of times the evidence guys will wear BDUs and boots and that kind of stuff just because you don't know what's going to happen. But I must have been doing a talk or something, and Brian Botig, another agent, pulled up, and I said, Brian, do you have another pair of 511 pants in your car? He's like, I do. So this is the level of this is someone I trust. If somebody will give you the pants out of the trunk of their car and a pair of boots so that you can operate, and I literally stripped down on the lawn of the Pentagon, changed my pants, put on new boots, and went to work. And from that point on, we started to set up the initial command with our partners from multiple different agencies, including the military, and we started to set up what was going to happen for what we knew was going to be a long-term crime scene. And at the same time, firefighters were arriving on scene. They were starting to, lay down foam from the airport authorities, fire department, and sadly, the victims were being brought out of the burning building in just difficult situation, and they were triaging people on the lawn. Excuse me. This the 20th anniversary for all of us has been tough, and I'm as this does get to you, so I apologize for that, but
no apology needed, man. It never goes away, right?
No, unfortunately it doesn't. And so as they set up the triage on the lawn, we started setting up for the long-term haul, and then so that's where we were, and trying to communicate and get the the beginnings of this major crime scene started. And I will pass it to Jean on where she was in her story of 9/11, the morning of.
And I was actually down at Prince William Park, so I know there's some other ERT members here. I was at Evidence Response Team training, and I was there with Rob Schwinger, another WFO team member, and we all had pagers. We didn't have cell phones back then, so like the young kids and a lot of people can't conceive of that now, but we didn't have cell phones, we couldn't talk to each other, but we started getting the page about New York. We didn't have TVs. We're like out in a campsite area, and we start listening to a radio, and we finally hear about the second plane hit New York, and Rob and I are like, we gotta go. We know our team, like all of our team's getting paged, and they're like, no, stand down. And again, as soon as we heard about the Pentagon, Rob and I are like, we're out of here. Like
we really do have to go. Yeah,
we really have to go. We'll pay the price later, but we're really going. And it was when 495, the
395,
395,
95,
and 495.
Okay.
It was that the whole
Beltway
was under construction, and so when we get up there, the construction guys literally, we had a bubble on our car, not like the cool lights and siren that you see on TV.
Right.
And they're just like bringing us through the construction site to get up to the Pentagon, and I'm hearing him on the car radio,
which had to be very disconcerting that the page goes out that I was the quote unquote on scene commander, and then she hears me on the radio. She's like, "This is much much worse than I thought."
Yeah. Okay.
But we get there, and again, we just start working the way that we're trained or being trained to work. And bottom line was, I think the main thing that I have taken away from that event, setting aside the crime scene, is the sense of teamwork and community that surrounded that event. Like, there were no egos, there were no differences of opinion based on like who you worked for. It was one team, one fight, and we came together, and it didn't matter what you were asked to do.
Yeah. And I think that one of the problems that everybody is having in this 20th anniversary is that not only at these crime scenes where everybody just came together and worked together and bonded as one, the community did. Yeah. And so on the 20th anniversary, we couldn't be further apart in this country right now, and that's depressing. I think that's part of the reason that anybody who responded
is having a hard time this year.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've done a lot of soul searching to figure out why the 20 year for us. It's not just a number, but
and it's everybody we
it's
speak
everybody.
to. Yeah.
But I said how 9/11 shaped our lives. We have neighbors here tonight, and these neighbors are one of the reasons that we stayed at Washington Field. Like, we loved the work we did there, we loved the team, but we couldn't leave our neighborhood, and we couldn't leave our team.
Yeah, these guys came to our house, took care of our dog. They did everything, right? It was like...
There were 3 little girls. We got home after a midnight shift, and we're literally in bed. And
our 4-hour sleep cycle.
Our doorbell rings, and he hops up. He took one for the team, and he hops up, and he's like, "Gene, you got to come down here." I'm like, I can't move. He's like, "No, you really got to come down here." And we have these 3 little girls standing at our door with chocolate chip cookies that they had made.
Wow.
With notes.
Oh my goodness.
So,
yeah. No, it was ridiculous. We'd come home for our 4 hours of sleep from the shift, and there'd be burgers ready for us to eat, already cooked. Just put them on, So it was a different time, right?
Right.
And that's why we stayed in that neighborhood, because that hasn't changed within the neighborhood, right? So that being said, we'll get on to the second slide after 20 minutes.
So before we continue on, I just want to ask this question. I'm not expecting an answer, but what I'd like to ask the folks that are listening is, why? Why is that? And what can we do to change it? Again, not a question I'm looking for an answer tonight necessarily, but something we should all ponder and figure out, why should it take a tragedy like that to bring us all together? Shouldn't we be like that all the time to begin with? So just food for, and maybe you are, right? Maybe you are in your own individual communities. I know for my case, and the folks that I hang out with are like that. But how do we spread that to make it bigger and make it a nationwide thing like it was back then?
100%.
That's a question we need to figure out an answer to. So
I got one more thing. Can you go for a second back to the first slide? Just for a second. All right. So and at the end of this, keep this slide up because you guys look young for your age.
Oh, there's plenty of slides of us looking young in this presentation.
But when you look at this picture, if you guys check this picture out, you in particular, Gene.
Gene's like 12.
You look 12. You look like you're 12 years old.
Yeah. I just want to say I didn't marry her because she looked like she was 12. Okay, that's what had nothing to do with that. All right, let's get away from
it. It wasn't weird until you said it.
And for the record, I'm older than him. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
really,
he's just aged a shitload better than me. But you said I could use that word.
You're fine.
Okay,
you're good.
Right.
No worries.
Yes, no censorship here, so you're good.
Awesome.
All right, moving on.
Okay, so
slide 3.
Exactly. So the Flight 77 is the flight that hit the Pentagon, and a lot of people may not know, but it left Dulles Airport and then flew out over West Virginia, and that's when the terrorists took the plane over. And then it was flown back into the Washington, D.C. area, went off radar, and hit the Pentagon at 9:39. On board that plane, we had 59 people, and along with 5 terrorists, who I don't count in that 59, and then 125 workers inside the Pentagon, for a total of 184 innocent victims that were killed at the Pentagon. The flight itself was manifested with people of all ages. If you are lucky enough to be able to go to the Pentagon Memorial, you'll see the ages. And these were just regular people, like all of the flights that were taken down, doing what all of us do to take a travel day, right? So, and inside the Pentagon, these people were just going to work. They were doing their jobs. They were civilians. They were military, but they weren't. They weren't in the front lines of a war until 9:39 in the morning, and then unfortunately they were.
So I want to comment on this because I know a little bit about this. When you hear that an airplane hits the Pentagon and only 184 people die, innocents as you called them, do you know why that is?
I do, because we process that scene, and but I'll let you tell that story.
Okay. Well, the only reason I know the story is because I was there. I was in the Pentagon on 9/11. I was the Coast Guard liaison officer on the Office of Secretary of Defense staff, and I was fairly near the hit point. I was fine. I was not hurt. Our office was damaged, and we evacuated. But the reason that the plane didn't do more damage, when I say more damage, I mean killed more people, is because it hit the one wedge of the Pentagon that had just undergone major renovation. It was the Army wedge of the Pentagon, and they were just in the process of moving back into that wedge. Had that plane hit any other wedge at the Pentagon, it would have been thousands dead, many thousands. It would have been more than the World Trade Center. Quite honestly, because there's 25 or 30,000 people that work in that building on any given day, all jammed together. Boy, you talk about good fortune. That isn't okay. So I just wanted to tell that.
Yeah,
story.
no, that is accurate, and it is one of those things you just can't explain why and how it happened like that. Right.
So while we're talking about that, show of hands, you folks that are out here, who was at the Pentagon that day?
Awesome.
Yeah. And who was supposed to be?
Yeah. One of our good friends, Charlie Ray, works for the Navy, and he had a meeting at the Pentagon that morning, and because of traffic, wasn't able to go, and sadly lost several of his friends.
Wow.
So, wow. And Charlie and Liz are here today, as they are for us all the time.
Yeah.
So back to the day.
Slide.
The third slide, exactly.
Of the 700 slide deck.
And I show you this, and I show you this because of that smoke, right? The smoke that you saw in the initial picture and the smoke here. This is what caused the damage to the first responders. And this is why it's so important for those people who are at the scene, whether you're military, law enforcement, firefighters, to get involved in the World Trade Center Health Program, in the Victims Compensation Fund, so that you can be monitored, and any potential issues can be addressed as quickly as they possibly can. And we'll talk about that as we get going. But this smoke was filled with toxins from the airplane, jet fuel, from asbestos, from computers, from lights. Everything in that building caused a very toxic area to work in. So when we first arrived there, as I said, the Pentagon itself, the building had not collapsed. And these photographs, Jen Hill is here. She's one of our photographers for the team. And Jen and her partner in crime, Jen Farmer, now Combs, took amazing photographs. And Garrett McKenzie, one of our team photographers, took photographs that captured this location before the collapse. So this is really, really important for us to see what's happening before that collapse. And this is a picture that you'll see of the building. And people say, well, you know, there couldn't have been a plane that hit here because the wings would have Clearly, behind that lower portion of that is where the plane entered, and the wings did cause damage in that thing, which is why the building did this. It collapsed because there wasn't the structure below it to hold it up, and it collapsed. Prior to the collapse, the Fairfax County Fire Department had put lasers up on the top of the building to monitor any potential movement. And one of the amazing things that day was that Chief Schwartz, who was the deputy chief, I believe at the time, called out, hey, say, everybody out of the building. So people doing rescues, people doing everything out of the building. So we all ended up leaving the building, going up onto the roadway that's there. And as we were doing it, this building collapsed. And there would have been dozens and dozens of firefighters, law enforcement, FBI agents inside that building that would have perished. Just great firefighting. It wasn't nobody was happy to be pulled out of there the first time. And we'll talk about a second time as we go forward here too. Firefighters, there's a book that was written called Firefight, the Inside Battle to Save the Pentagon. And it really gives a very detailed description of the firefighting that was done there. It was not just a day of firefighting. There was days of fires taking place inside that building. They did an amazing job. One of the issues they ran into was the roof of the Pentagon, when it was built, is cement. Like most roofs are not cement, right? This is the Pentagon, so it's cement. And unfortunately, in the roof section, the insulation at the time was horsehair. So as soon as that fire hit there, it just took off. And the firefighters, one of the things that they do, I'm told, is that they punch holes ahead of the fire and put hoses down there and stop the fire from progressing. They couldn't get the holes because they had to jackhammer the holes eventually to get it through there because it was 2 feet of cement.
Yeah.
So that is one of the reasons that the fire continued inside the building for the period of time that it did. As we started to muster up our teams, people started arriving. One of the first calls I put out was back to the field office, and that was the radios were working, and I called back and I said, that we're down here and we're setting up command, and they said, what do you need? I said, I need everything we got, bring it down here. And the response was, the roads are just closed because of everybody leaving DC. So the difficulty was getting our equipment to the scene at the Pentagon because it was difficult to get there. The building itself was engulfed between quarters 4 and 5, and for all of the floors that were on that side of the building. And from the road here, you can see that it was a large fire. Again, that cloud of smoke that people were in puts people into harm's way today based off of that exposure. We set up line searches to clear this lawn area of any potential debris, and that debris included all sorts of stuff. In this photograph here, they actually thought they were taking, at the time they thought it was the windows from the airplane that were being recovered. And it turns out it was windows from the Pentagon that when the explosion took place inside, the blast pushed the windows out onto the lawn. So they were collecting them correctly, but it turned out that they were building debris.
But it's one of those things where immediately we prioritized where that collection was going to be done, because we knew that more fire trucks were going to come up, and all of the equipment and everybody's crime scene trucks and everything else were going to come in, and we didn't want to lose evidence right there at the site. So that was cleared first, and then we started doing the roads and all of the surrounding areas. And we couldn't get into the building. The firefighters were doing, it was a rescue mission at that point and a firefighting mission.
I mean, a full-out fighting a fire. So you're not going to have like a FBI agent in our gear walk in there to collect evidence inside of these guys are going to be like, and they were, get out. And we did get into the building, and you'll see some of that. But on that lawn, there were large parts of Flight 77 that when the plane exploded, through the hole that it entered, those parts of the plane just blew out. So, again, and we're not going to be here to counter conspiracy theories, because that's madness. Right. But there were a lot of airplane parts from Flight 77 and seats and everything else found inside that building. There was definitely a plane that hit the Pentagon. I've just put that out there for the nuts who think there wasn't one, right?
There are people that believe it wasn't an airplane. And what I would say to them is, what happened to the 159 people that just vanished into thin air?
Exactly.
They're no longer around, and their families. So, but I wanted to tell, this is a kind of a human interest piece of this. So by the time I personally got home on 9/11, it was about 8 p.m. at night. By the time I was there, because everything was in lockdown. Couldn't call anywhere, you couldn't drive anywhere, no cars could move. Eventually, many hours later, you were able to get your car and drive, and I did. By the time I dropped another guy off, because everybody was having craziness, got home, talked to my wife, and then finally started watching the news. Of course, everything's on the news. And about 10 p.m. at night, we see Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense at the time, come on and say, anybody, and the two people that I saw raise their hand, anybody who works in the Pentagon and is able to do so is coming back to work tomorrow in the Pentagon. So I thought, okay, so the building must be okay. The next morning, I drive to, and I park in the parking lot that's on the north side of 395 over near Pentagon Row. In that area, I park there, and I look across as I walk through the tunnel, that tunnel that goes under 395, and I come out, and the building is literally still on fire.
Still burning, yeah.
I mean, you can see flames leaping out of the ceiling, the roof of the building, and I'm thinking, seriously? I'm going to work in that building right now? I mean,
that's what we were saying.
Yeah, it was crazy that we were doing that, but that was sort of Secretary Rumsfeld's like, you're not going to stop us. We're going to. This is the real deal. And
I mean, if there's any time for the military to go to work, it was 9/12.
There you go.
Right. So, and they did. And I mean, the place was filled with people. It was actually surreal because of the work that was still going on while we were in with the firefighters and doing our jobs. So you say when you got home the first day, we didn't get home the first day.
Right.
Gene, we decided that we're going to split the teams into shifts so that we didn't exhaust everyone, which is important, right? Because everybody wants to be at the Pentagon, everybody wants to be at Ground Zero working, and nobody wants to go home. What happens after 24 hours? Your team's completely exhausted. So unfortunately, some people have to go home. The honest part about that is those people who went home, and Gene was part of the team that was asked to go home the next day.
Next day.
And
so I literally went home to actually get him pants that fit.
All right, okay, it was the boots that didn't fit the most that really hurt. The pants I could get away with, right? So, the teams, we ran a 24-hour cycle. We broke into two 12-hour shifts, and those shifts were not just 12 hours. They were probably about 16-hour days. But nobody wanted to leave. We wanted to be there and do our jobs. There's always those strange stories that happen, and this is one of them. When the plane came in, over the highway. It hit 2 telephone poles. That's how low it came in over 27.
Light poles.
Light poles, yeah, light poles. And this is one of the light poles, and this is one of the light poles. This light pole ended up in the front of this man's taxi. So Gene had said that there weren't a lot of cell phones around. I actually grabbed one of the squad cell phones when I was responding to the Pentagon. So I had a cell phone. And when I saw this guy, I mean, this literally the light post part of this ended up in his front seat.
Wow.
with an airliner flying low enough over his car to cause this to happen. So to say he was a little freaked out is putting it mildly. So I gave him my phone. I said, hey, call home, let him know you're okay, because there were news cameras up there taking pictures of his taxi. Well, he did, and this is a picture of him actually calling home. It wasn't until about a week later when one of the special agents in charge came up to me. They're like, hey, one of the squad phones called Ghana on 9/11. Is there first, it was like, are you part of this terrorist organization or otherwise?
Right.
Why are you wasting the Bureau's money? Which is more the reason he was asking, right? And I was like, all good deeds, none go unturned.
None go unpunished,
yeah.
right.
So the firefighting continues, as you said, 4 days, and literally weeks into it, as layers of the Pentagon were removed for recovery purposes, it would spark a hotspot that would ignite. And like a week into it, in the middle of the night, you'd see flames start coming up, and it became so commonplace that there's actually a video of us walking out of the building because it's on fire again, and it just was a kind of a strange work environment. But again, that smoke was ever present on the outside. So we set it up into 2 shifts, 12 hours. We had ERT, evidence response team coordinators that were on each shift. One was an admin, one was operations. I was one of the coordinators on the night shift. And we had the urban search and rescue teams that we worked with. We had investigative side, intelligence side, the security of the event itself. Our explosive ordnance guys were down there and constantly being called in upon to take a look at something or be sent out to another location where something happened. Unfortunately, we had to set up morgue operations, and health and physical and mental fitness for everybody working down there was very important. One of the things that I thought was brilliant was that the Salvation Army was there, and the colonel or major from the Salvation Army came up to me every night. What else do you need? What else do you need? And I said, jokingly, how about if we get massage therapists down here, right? And I was joking.
Right.
The next day, there's a new tent up, and that same SAC comes up to me and goes, what are you thinking? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, this tent over here. I'm like, I still don't have a clue what you're talking about. And he's like, come on. He comes over, and there's massage therapists in there. and luckily, they were all mature women in their late 50s and 60s with hands like rocks. And they were able to, the pain that they're inflicting upon the team members. But it was probably ended up to be one of the smarter moves I made. But at first,
troop welfare, man, you got to take care of them.
At first,
the firefighters were lined up.
Yeah, at first it was, because it was very, it was labor.
For the 50-year-old massage therapists.
Yeah,
they were lined up.
Yeah, they're from a college. I'm going to leave that at that.
Right.
So, and then we had logistics, and logistics was bringing in, all the things you would need. And as we get into the building here, you'll see all of the material that was needed to support this operation. Early on that morning, Garrett McKenzie and I were told, hey, there's this pile of burning rubble, debris inside the area. It's called A&E Drive, and it was right across from this, which is what we referred to as the punch-out hole. So what happened here was, when the plane entered the opposite side of the building, it made its way into about a quarter of the way into the building, and then it exploded. And like a shape charge, the force continued forward in the shape of the fuselage until it met this wall, and it punched out that hole and caused that damage. So My thought was that the black box, which was ever present in a airline disaster, to find, right? I knew that. I didn't know a lot about airline disasters at the time, but I knew we'd be looking for the black box, and I thought it's going to be in this pile here. And so
this is the inner ring. This is the center courtyard.
Exactly, the
right,
inner ring, which you can actually, for those who've never been there, you can drive a car or a truck around inside this area.
Yeah, right.
And literally on the morning of 9/11, there was a volunteer fire department from Maryland that arrived with a hook and ladder, old school hook and ladder, like with the bubble on the front. And because the flames were up on the roof and everywhere,
right,
coming out those windows, they said, we need the hook and ladder to go in there. So they tried to get it in through the driveway of A&E Drive, and that the cab of the truck was too high.
Couldn't fit.
They cut the cab off the top of the truck.
Wow.
And drove it into A&E Drive. Now, there's a guy with a set.
You bet.
Right? There's the chief of police or chief of the fire department in a small town. This truck is like expensive, and he's like,
and it's probably the only one they have.
I'm sure it is. And it's like, get the job done. Get the torches out, cut the top of this truck off, and get it in there. And they did.
Wow.
So when Garrett and I, you can see the amount of smoke in here. We go in there, and as we're walking through, there's firefighters up in the windows, and they're breaking the windows to ventilate. And so I took my flashlight, and because it was that smoky and dark in there, I shined my flashlight up there to let the firefighters know, hey, we're walking below you here as you're busting out these windows. They just gave us a thumbs up and continued breaking out the windows. They're like, it's a reason you're wearing a helmet. All right. So
we know you're there.
Yeah, we know you're there. Yeah. So you should beware. We went down here, we looked, and it was just a large pile of debris that was burning, and so we ended up making that a priority. And this is as I said, the punch out hole. The conspiracy theories, I just want to address it quickly. There's explosive charges that make a similar hole, and what these conspiracy people thought it wasn't a plane. It wasn't a plane. This is because they thought it was the front of the building. This is where the plane went in, they say. This is really an explosive charge.
Okay.
So I throw the bullshit flag right there.
Okay.
So looking down at A&E Drive, that's how large it is. And as they laid out the water, I mean, I would say millions of gallons of water. A lot of water.
It's got to be hundreds of millions of gallons.
A lot of water.
Right.
A lot of water. So it was between quarter 4 and quarter 5, the water was probably knee deep and rushing out the doors. So just flowing out. And so when we started walking down those corridors, you're literally, your big yellow boots, which you'll see, are just filled with water. We ended up duct taping them later to keep the water out. But there was that much firefighting going on, that much water going into that building, which was unbelievable. This area here was then set up for the initial recoveries because we weren't in the building; they were still firefighting, and so the outside portion of the area was worked. This area here became very important, and teams from Quantico, Washington Field Office, multiple other field offices responded and came to assist us. We always say that if you don't write stuff down, it didn't happen. Maybe 9/11, but...
So what you see here is Rich Stallings, agent that we worked with, actually documenting what he's seeing and what's being collected on site right there. So no matter the scene, you got to document, you got to have your details right, and particularly when you're doing remains recovery and evidence recovery.
So the remains recovery started at A&E Drive, and that was Dick Klein, who was a Fairfax County homicide detective, was on our task force, and I assigned him to lead that on the night shift, and they started doing that. And it was an honor to be part of the team, and every person on that team felt the same way, to be able to be part of the team that recovered the victims of this event. And it was done in a manner that was respectful, and it was done with the military, but you still had to document everything that we were moving, everything that came out of there, and sadly, victims' remains were a big part of that. On about the third night, Jen Hill, our photographer, who is here tonight, I believe, we're in A&E Drive again, and Jen came up to me and Mark Whitworth, who was explosives unit guy, and said, hey, I got something over here, I think, right? And so she was like, this is what she was looking at. And this, it's debris, right? So difficult to discern that it's anything.
Right.
This is how detailed these searches were for the entire building. And that turned out to be the black box.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So Jen Hill found the black box. The rule we made was the black box is going to go with the team leader to NTSB. So I brought it to NTSB and LaFont Plaza, and those guys worked their magic, and they literally could tell the flight pattern of the plane itself and see where the plane was taken over. It was amazing, but it was a huge an add-on to the investigation as to what actually happened, when it happened, and where it happened.
So the black box usually records voice.
Well, there's two.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's the voice recorder.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
right
the voice
here.
recorder.
So,
Okay.
And that didn't.
And so it was an
Didn't
old
survive.
school voice recorder because it was 2001.
Yeah.
And it did not survive. So
Okay.
there was no voice that was recovered from the Pentagon itself.
Okay.
But the key was, like, we had NTSB there with us working hand in hand, and they had briefed us, and we're thinking black box, it's blacks, right?
Right.
It's not.
It's not black.
So we had big
Okay.
posters of what they were supposed to look like, and clearly that didn't look
I mean, it looks like
anything.
something you would be familiar with because it looks like a something to be on a ship.
A radio.
It's
Looks like-
orange.
yeah,
It's
okay.
orange, and
Orange,
this
okay.
clearly is an orange. This is an NTSB investigator that was tied up with us on our teams. So it was really a one team, one fight, as Gene had said.
It's an orange black box.
Yes, but
There you
not
go.
not
Okay.
anymore, right?
Right,
So
right.
it's not easy.
Right.
So once again, this is where we started out in the front, and as we start working this 24/7, so we get lights in and start doing the operation of removing stuff. This photograph is one of the first recoveries on the night shift of a victim, and this area had been shored up. You can see this is the firefighters, the urban search and rescue team, and you can see there's wood structures there that they built
Right.
to support the building so that it didn't collapse on us, on all of us. The difficult part was that collapse section was extremely unstable, so we didn't want to start digging away at the bottom and have the whole thing slide down on us. So this first recovery was on our night shift was we had 4 or 5 teams that were set up like A, B, C, D as teams. Gene was the team leader of Team A, and so the first recovery was up and Gene's team was up, and so I was like, this isn't an easy one by any stretch. I know that she can do it, but I'm her husband. I don't want to send her in there. But then I'm like, well, that's not how
Gotta
this
go
works.
in there,
That's
yeah.
not how it works, right? So Gene's team went in and did that first recovery. Now, I will add, Gene's mom, who is now 97 years old, is a tough Yankee. And if Gene went in there and something horrendous happened, and I was standing outside that building, not good, right? So I went in with her, and that in the thought was, if something awful happened, I don't have to deal.
Yeah.
With her, I don't have to deal with her mother.
Because you're with her. Yeah.
It's really that was what was going through my head.
Mother-in-law.
More afraid of the mother-in-law than the hazards at
yeah.
stake
no,
right there.
Still,
As he should be.
Still. This is a photo of the first flag that was recovered from the rubble, and it's the Pentagon. So there's flags in every office. So we actually had to set up a process for recovered flags so that each one was recovered, was given that reverence, was documented where it came from. And if you go into the Pentagon today, you'll see many flags behind glass that were recovered by the teams and were put back in offices. There was strange things that happened on like the third deck here. I was up in an office on the edge of that, on like the third or fourth floor. Just kind of one of the things that we teach if you're a team leader is to get away from your team for a little bit and try and figure stuff out without them seeing you say like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, right? So that's not always, it doesn't instill great confidence. So get yourself away. I had a little office, not a little office, but literally a general's office that I would go to there. And I looked out one day, one evening, night, and there was a statue of a soldier saluting that as the teams went through, somebody put it up on top of a a file cabinet, and the lights that were lit the event here our scene captured that statue in a full-size shadow of a soldier standing over the hole saluting, and that became my place to go. It was and when they're like getting ready to clear things, I'm like, here's the deal, that's not moving, and that stayed there until we had to move it. Because I felt he was standing guard over the teams. The cadavers, dogs that came in, the canines that came in, were invaluable. They, because of the situation we had here, it was very difficult to find evidence and remains, and the dogs were extremely helpful in this.
Sure.
So we had to set up security.
And it projected out, like it is the Pentagon, so we're worried about all of everything that is in the building, but it's also the crime scene, right? So we ended up putting up fencing around it, used Secret Service to actually use their badging system. They're great at what they do for all the special events. So they came in, and it's one of those, like, you use the resources and their expertise, and that's what we did with all of our partners. Like, what do you bring to the table, and let's figure out how to integrate that into the site.
And they made these badges. So blue badge got you into the outer perimeter, and then the red badge of courage, got you inside the building. And so you were issued whatever, depending on what your job was, you were given the color-coded badge to get you able to do that job.
And these were invaluable to us as we try to determine everybody who is actually at this site as they're registering for the World Trade Center and the Victims' Compensation Fund, because this is documentation that they actually did deploy to the scene and that they were there for a period of time.
Yeah.
Right, so the Quantico assets, the name of the group has changed, but Special Projects Unit was invaluable for us. And the Paula Ernst was the unit chief there, but at the time she was one of the operators that was just, you look at these people, you're like, this is amazing that they can do this stuff, the mapping and the documentation. And so these teams went in and documented everything. And when you say detailed documentation, it was down to the, exact,
right.
Unbelievable. And that became very important as we go forward.
Item, yeah.
And they built these types of modeling for the teams and for potential court, and most importantly for the victims' families, so that they could determine where their loved one was recovered. And in a lot of cases, we were able to do that. As you can see, they go through all of this stuff. So it's just amazing stuff that the FBI Special Projects were able to put together for us. So this overview shows you in the top, it shows where the plane entered. So if we look up here is where the plane entered, and then A&E Drive is where that smoke area is, where that punch-out hole was. The roof was also included. As we like to say, things blow up, and you have to look at all these locations, and there was evidence found in these locations just from the way the blast pattern was. You can see the amount of damage in through A&E Drive, a little bit clearer in with less smoke there.
Yeah, one of the things that's amazing to me as I see these pictures, the Pentagon was built to last.
Yeah.
And every single wall was 2 feet concrete. And so to see that level of damage in every single wall, the roof, every single wall, 2 feet of concrete. This is not. This is not 2x4s and sheetrock.
You're not worried about how far the studs are apart in this place. It's one big stud.
Right, and still.
And so are the people that work in there, I might add.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't mean it like that, but
I don't think he was actually talking to you, Kevin.
No, exactly.
Darn.
So as we go forward, we're still looking at this, and now we'll get inside the building. And this is the part I think people, because the outside stuff we've talked about, and I think it's important for people to realize what the inside of this building was, what the teams did every day, day and night, and what they were exposed to while doing it. every evening and every day, the team leaders would kind of set up, hey, this is your search order, and kind of put in place what our operation is going to be for the day. I like to put this photograph. Gene always kicks me. This photo and this photo are the last times that I'm telling Gene to do anything. She's the shorter in white team leader, and I'm the
in white.
She's in white on the right.
On the right.
And I'm the guy in blue telling her what to do. And that's, I've been married to her for 33 years. It really was the last time I ever had the ability or authority to tell her anything. So, but it was rewarding. It really was. I felt it.
It was good while it lasted.
It did. I did.
Yeah.
And I have it in photographs here. Photography. I have it in photography.
So we talk about how it shaped our lives. Because I didn't want that to happen again, I became the senior team leader.
She did,
over
yeah.
him, so.
She ended up for 12 years running the evidence response team, and I was a team leader on the team. So, yeah.
Isn't it funny how those things turn out?
It's Kevin. It's hysterical how that stuff works out. Yeah.
Just keep on going.
Yeah.
We got to get to the inside.
Okay, so and one of the interesting things here, I don't know if you can see it, but on Gene's left arm is there's like an orange markings there. The system we set up was that these Velcro names would be placed on the team leader's arms, and then they were on a board also out inside the hazmat area. And the idea was, if there was a collapse, if they found the team leader, they would be able to find out what team was with her or him. And then that would also be on the board. So we knew who was in the building and who was out of the building at any given time. So the reality of the dangers of this event, we try and make it as light as we can, as difficult as that is. But, the reality struck you in the face every single day when you went to work of this is the real deal. The military, the old guard came up one of the nights and they're like, Tom, what do you need? And I'm like, we could use some young Army people to come in here and help us. And
I think he said some young, pissed off Army
yeah,
people.
exactly right.
Ah.
And that's what they sent us. And these guys and gals were phenomenal. They would go, when we talk about clearing debris, like office equipment and all this stuff, they would lay waste to it, get it done. And I'd come in like an hour later, I'd be like waiting for them, because, a broken down,
Graybeard.
Yeah, Graybeard is like, this is going to take a long time. You come back and these guys are like,
Bryant, I'm not liking this particular line of reasoning here.
What do we need to do now,
Right.
sir?
Well,
And get it done.
She has exposure to the one gray beard, so she doesn't
it's
know
a short,
about the rest of
it's
them.
a small gray beard.
Yeah.
Gray goat, maybe, I
Gray
don't know. It's fitting. So here we are back. This area is starting to get cleared out, and as we enter the building, this is what the teams were working with. The interior of the building, for all levels of the floors, were in this condition of destruction. So as the teams went through, they would clear these out methodically, document everything and anything that was found. They were, evidence items, parts of hijacker passports, box cutters, and sadly, victims. And victims' remains were recovered here. So, but each one of those was documented as close to the location it was found as we could possibly do, and that took us a long time to get it done and get it done right. So inside the building was just floor after floor of this. And one of the interesting things is literally days later, some of the top secret safes were still hot because of the intense heat and the fireball that went through. That metal just kept that heat. And then you'd come around a corner and you'd see a coffee cup sitting on a desk untouched, and just weird stuff like that. And it's the explosive people here will tell you that shock wave from explosives, it bounces off of things. It takes a turn here, and you really can't say it's definitely going to go here because it may hit off of something there. So weird things happen inside explosive scenes.
Yeah.
And so this is where the collapse was. So we start eating away at that debris to open that area up. And the teams are just going, and it literally is just walking them through. So
yeah, I mean, literally, like we had wheelbarrows.
One
and
piece at a time,
shovels,
right?
And it was
Yeah.
one piece, and
Right.
you would go in and you'd work for a certain length of time, and then go out, take a
Right.
break. The next team comes in, just over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Until
Yeah.
we could get down to the absolute floor and remove all of the debris. And this is just the first stage,
Right.
because everything that came out of that building was then again looked at and sifted out in the north lot. We have a whole nother process that's going on at the exact same
In the
time.
north lot, right? I remember the piles just getting bigger and
Exactly.
bigger and bigger.
Yep.
Wow.
And you can, I mean, you can almost see the haze in this photograph. When Jen Hill and Jen Combs were taking a lot of these photographs, the flash would capture the particulate matter in the air, right? So when you're working, you're wearing your mask as often as you can, but you couldn't communicate, so you would sadly take off your mask at times to talk, and this was some of the issues that we had.
And so you talk about some of those wisdom moments, right? So
Yeah.
the way that we packed our cars out completely changed after this.
100%.
Like we didn't have our masks when we deployed. We didn't necessarily have a ton of Tyvek. We had one Tyvek suit in the car, and we had minimal packaging. And so based on this event, that changed. The monitoring equipment, like
Air monitoring,
a lot of things changed. And we did do air monitoring here.
Yeah, we did.
The EPA came, and so there were steps that were taken. But based on this, there was a lot more done following that.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Every one of these rules is written in blood. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%
Yeah, that's the way
right.
it works, right? You learn as you go, right?
Yeah,
This is not
100%.
something you predicted you were going to have to deal with, and you learn things from it. And you do different
Exactly.
procedures going forward.
Exactly. And so you can start to see that we're getting rid of debris, the top layer, getting into this stuff. And as we go forward, you can see it's starting to open up a little bit. And go through these quick. Scott Stanley on the far left, he's one of our medics. We had medics that were assigned with us that stayed with the teams to make sure people were safe and if something happened. And I don't know that we had any injuries, physical injuries that took place inside the building. And this is an interesting thing. This is second floor, and this is below where the plane actually blew up.
Above.
Right? Above. It's above it. And you can see that they've put in the wooden structures there to hold the ceilings up. The columns were completely destroyed. And that floor, as you said, everything is cement. That floor is buckled up.
Wow.
Right? And so, one of the interesting things we had remains that had to be recovered here, but we couldn't get to it because the floor was so brittle. It was so, thin from being damaged in heat. So Gene and Jen Combs, who were the lightest people on the team, they came in with plywood, laid the plywood down, walked in, laid down another piece of plywood, walked in, and then were able to do that recovery, which, it tells you the effort that people went to, the effort that Gene and Jen went to on that one, but it was repeated over and over by team members throughout the day shift and the night shift. Just amazing stuff. And this is actually that office I spoke about, and across the way is where that statue was. This is a rest area where we would teams would take a break, hazmat tents, decon tents to make sure that everybody was cleaned up. Everything was done that we knew we should be doing there to prevent any contamination issues. The location was set up with the command center, the actually where the attack was, and then the morgue area and the north lot. Morgue operations, to tell you how detailed this was, 2,406 portions of remains were recovered from 11 to 28, and 179 of the victims were positively identified.
Okay.
Through DNA, which is huge.
Yeah, that is.
So no stone was unturned in doing this to get the families closure as best they possibly could. The morgue operations were set up. They were brought to Fort Belvoir, flown out from Fort Belvoir to Dover Air Base, where they went to the Dover Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, where a proper autopsy and recovery of the remains was documented there also. The debris sifting operation was enormous, right? As this is just one night where we brought in the heavier equipment, and we set up like a slide out the back, a chute out the back, and then dump trucks were brought there. Agents and team members were assigned to ride with each one of the trucks because there was evidence and for that chain of custody.
Right.
And then in one night we took out 72 dump trucks.
Wow.
So it shows you the amount that's going down to this north lot area where the debris was separated with office equipment, that type of stuff, and then laid out and sifted once again. So it's gone through 2 stages already here.
We're talking months, right? This is many months.
Well, it was till
Ours was, I think, between 3 and 4 weeks.
Okay.
For the Pentagon.
on scene.
And then there was another process that was done in a warehouse separately. And that was months.
So this is the final walkthrough. If you remember those photographs of the inside of the building, this is what the entire inside of the building looked like. We cleaned it out to the process that it took every piece of debris out of there to determine if it was something that was part of the attack, if it was victims or whatever it was. We were able to determine what it was. And then we had a closing ceremony that went turning it back over to the military. And then there was a section that was set up in Arlington, in Eade Street. It was a warehouse that was set up in teams. Michelle Rankin is here, who is actually the agent in the middle of that picture, sifting through the debris. And this was not an easy task. I mean, this is not in the building doing that, but this is a very difficult task to try and determine all the paper and debris that came out of there. Just another sift section of a further review. And sadly, in this photograph, there's 2 of our good friends, Melissa Morrow and Wes Yu, who are on the left of this photograph. And sadly, both of them are on our wall of honor. They both passed from cancers tied to the 9/11 response.
Oh, goodness.
And these are all plane parts. The operation here went on for weeks. And this is one of the signs that really stuck with us on the scene. That young kids put signs up all over the place. It was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where we talked about community at the beginning, and I think it's one of the things that it was what helped us get through the day, and it was also one of those things that was the hardest thing for us to get through the day.
Yeah.
Because we would go to the tent, and I don't know if you ever went over, but they had a tent where we could go and get a bite to eat, and Salvation Army was there, and so was the other big group, but Red Cross, thank you, as well as there was a Baptist church that came up from North Carolina, and we'd go get our peanut butter sandwich or whatever, and the kids would write a note that would be inside of your sandwich bag, and it was awesome, but it was also just one of those moments where you're like in the zone and you're just trying to deal with what you have to deal with and do your job, and it would bring you back to humanity. And then you'd have to check that away and go back in and do the job again.
Yeah, and
so it's extremely thankful to have it.
But it was positive.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned that you went home and watched television. We tell our teams, do not go home and watch television.
Okay.
You don't want to personalize what you're doing, because it is, if you start doing that, you're gonna have some serious issues.
Well, and you can do it after.
Yeah, afterwards, right? Become more ingrained in it, but at the time you should be very careful. This is a list of our 9/11 heroes. These are, the first one is Lenny Hatton, who died on 9/11, and the rest of them are agents and 2 support who got 9/11 illnesses from that smoke, whether it be in New York, Shanksville, or at the Pentagon. And
we have one more who's not up there, who is Tom Manell. He hasn't been named to the wall yet. He passed this year. And so we're at, I think we have 9 that are from the Pentagon.
Okay.
Out of 18. So
wow.
Yeah, I want to make sure we get a copy of that photo. I'm not sure how well the image from the projector is showing up in the video, and I want to make sure that we at least insert that photo
Yeah,
in
I
there.
mean, it's important, right? Because currently the FBI has close to 100 people who are suffering from some form of illness related to 9/11. And I don't think people know that. We've been advocates, Scott Stanley, Jen Hill, Gene and myself started over a decade ago saying, hey, something's wrong. And Scott, as I said, was one of the smartest people we know. He was like, hey, Wes and Bob Roth are sick. They're in their 30s. They shouldn't have a multiple myeloma.
Right.
And they do. And so we never would have caught that, but he did. And it was early stages of the whole New York 9/11 illnesses. And so we started, as the FBI Agents Association, either vice president or president, every time we met with the director, the first thing on the topic was 9/11. And to the point where people are like, come on, do we have to bring it up? Yeah, we're going to bring it up again. So when we started this, these families had a death in their family from cancer. And currently they have a line of duty death for what their loved one did. And that's important.
You bet.
And they're on the national wall. The badge carriers are on the national wall at Law Enforcement Memorial, and all of them are on the internal wall of honor of the FBI. And that wouldn't have happened if people didn't push. And zero assistance was going out to these families, and we're well over $8 million that has gone out to these families, including the FBI Agents Association Memorial College Fund, which Gene was a trustee of for 12 years. And when we retired, Gene came back as the executive director. And that is still, we didn't want to come back to work. We came back to work because it was the FBI Agents Association. I'm doing fundraising for the FBI Agents Association. And honestly, there's no more important thing than to be able to send all of these children from these heroes to college. And that's really what our mission is. And it has been for a decade plus, and it continues to be. And we don't consider it work. It's a calling, right? If you can try and help these families, and everybody who's watching this podcast has the ability to do that. And I'll throw in a plug. If you text FBIAA to 50155, you can donate to the FBI Agents Association Memorial College Fund or the Membership Assistance Fund.
Can you repeat that again for our audience here? I know that also for those who are listening.
It's FBIAA to 50155. And it'll bring up the ability for you to just enter in your card, make a donation. Everything helps.
You bet.
So it's really
outstanding.
really important.
And I'm gonna give another reason why it was so important to put these families on the wall is that we were honored enough to be able to go with several of the families when they were put on the national wall. And the Roth family we were sitting with, and their youngest son, Kyle, literally looked at his mom when they called for the federal agencies to stand up. And he looked at his mom and he's like, we're not alone. Because up to that moment, he felt like no one knew the sacrifice that his dad made. And it's a moment that neither one of us will
when he
forget.
said that, we're like, here's this little guy at the time, and he gets it, right?
Yeah.
And I hope people get it. If you're a responder or a survivor of one of these locations, you need to go to the World Trade Center Health Program and the Victims Compensation Program, the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund, and look at it and sign up.
Yeah,
so
and register.
And register. We go, and everybody that was on our team that signed up, they should all be signed up, goes for a physical every year where they check for blood cancers, all sorts of things that people are getting. And it's 20 years later, people are still getting these things. They're new, fresh, and it's related to their exposure of what you saw tonight.
Yeah.
So people really need to take this seriously. They need to sign up. And if you have an illness that's certified, then all of your expenses for that medical treatment are taken care of by the World Trade Center Health Program. And the Victims Compensation Fund is there for people and their families during their difficult times, and also during the times if someone sadly passes, the family needs to be taken care of. And for what they did, we need to take care of them. And in 2019, the Victims Compensation Fund was funded indefinitely. So the money is going to be there to assist the families going forward, because this is not going away.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that I like about what you guys are doing, and thank you for coming tonight and giving us this story. I mean, I learned a lot, and I thought I knew a lot. Yeah. I thought I knew a lot, and I learned a lot. But, you know, I often say that those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. I didn't say that originally. That wasn't the original quote. But that word doomed. And if you don't really understand what happened on 9/11 just 20 years ago, and you don't understand why it happened, and you don't understand all of the implications and all of the impacts, not only the people that didn't make it, but the tail of the comet that continued to wreak destruction over time, then shame on you. And you guys are bringing that back to just say it's the 20th anniversary, and thank you, and we need to be paying attention. And there's so much noise going on in the world right now. I mean, we are just being bombarded, and there's no end to it. It's not going to end, but with noise. It's just coming in every day. And you forget how many people are really talking about 9/11 and what happened and what can happen. It could have been much worse. Thankfully, it was only as bad as it was, but it could have been much worse, and we can't let our guard down. So,
100%.
Yeah.
And we will have here tonight these September 11th, 2001 to 2021 FBI Agent Association coins, which this is really the first event they've been sold at.
Okay.
And the money goes directly to the college fund.
Okay.
And it is $20 for the 20th anniversary. So, and you get a coin. So they're pretty cool.
And you guys have a stash of them here tonight.
I got 125 of them.
All right.
Outstanding. Thank you guys for being here and sharing this story, because it absolutely is something that we need to keep in the forefront of our culture, to Kevin's point, so that we learn from the history so we aren't doomed to repeat it. And there's so many things that are going on in our world right now that are negative, and we need to do everything we can to add a little positivity back into that and create the nature of community and so on, and spread that goodwill.
Thank you guys for having us. This is a great platform to talk about the importance of 9/11 and for what people can do to really help the heroes of 9/11. And you'll be doing a lot to put these kids through college, and it's pretty cool.
You bet. All right, everybody, let's give these guys a round.
Absolutely.
You're buying me a round? Is that what you just said?
Absolutely. I'll buy you a couple if you want them.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And if you haven't bought a beer or ordered a beer here or another drink here recently, please do so. And make sure that you take care of your servers that are working here tonight. And thank you to the brewery for hosting this event, allowing us to do it here. And thank you guys for showing up to listen to this. And thank you, too, for being here to share it with us.
Thank you. And you did say that the brewery is given a percentage of the thing, so drink up.
Yeah. Yep. 10% of gross sales going to the college fund.
So if you're thinking, if you're on the fence about ordering that next beer, make sure that you're okay to drive away from here. Let's say that first.
Decision made, right.
But go ahead and order that next beer.
You can buy a coin, you can buy a beer, or you can buy both.
Right.
That's right. All right. So any other parting thoughts before we close this thing out for the evening?
I just want, once again, we really appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight. This is a really cool venue. If you've not made it down to this brewery, it's an awesome place. And we appreciate the friendship, Kevin, and pleasure to meet you, and hope that this goes for a long time.
And hopefully everyone's going to think about what you asked early on, which is how do we get that sense of community back so we can all do our own part.
Yeah. And it's every one of your and our responsibility to think about that and come up with an answer. Don't sit around waiting for somebody else to answer the question for you. Figure out what the answer is and do something about it.
Can I end with a humorous story?
Absolutely.
Because it's been kind of tough. The book that I have here in front of me is that firefight book, and I was lucky enough to be asked to go to lunch with George Bush when he was leaving. They asked for a number of people. It was like 10 of us that were asked, like working level GS, to go to this lunch. And so I went, and I was honored to go. And I brought this book with me because, I said, he's in it, right?
Right.
9/11. So I brought it with me, and the Secret Service told me, I asked him, I said, it'd be all right if I, ask the president. They're like, no, you really, don't do it, because he'll sign everything and anything. We will never get out of here. I'm like, all right. So I kept it on the table. At the end of the bag lunch that we had, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to have lunch with George Bush ever again.
Right.
And I'm never going to have this book with me ever again. So I said, as we're going through, I went through the line, shook his hand when we were done, and then went back, I got the book, and I got back in line. This guy's like, stalker. And I come back up, and I said, Mr. President, my wife and I are both in this book, and you're in this book. Could you sign this for me? And the Secret Service agent was just giving me that death stare. I'm like, hey, sorry, pal. So he's like, of course I will. So I said, it's Gene and Tom. So he comes in here
No.
and he signs it, but he starts it with a G for Gene.
Okay.
And then he stops himself, and he looks at me, he goes, it's a J, isn't it? I said, yes, sir, it is, but I'll change it. I'll have her change it when we get home. And he looks at me, he goes, no need. And he takes the pen and he turns the G into a J. And so now we got this book signed with a G, J, and Tom. How cool is that, right?
That's cool. Very cool. Yeah. That's a one of a kind right there.
It is. That's a keeper. You can't have it.
What's interesting, though, in addition to the experience that you shared earlier about just leaving the office to avoid the paperwork and so on, I think there's a pattern here.
There might be.
Yeah, this whole, it's better to beg forgiveness than to ask permission pattern.
I've been living it for 33 years.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Believe in it and operate that way myself.
Own it.
Yep. Outstanding. All right, Kevin, parting thoughts?
No, I'm done. I'm good.
All right, so I need to hit this little button here, right?
Yes, you do.
All right. So no matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing, thank you for listening to this podcast, and make sure between this one and the next, you take time to enjoy the ride.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.